Joining me now to talk about the president's comments and their impact on the Middle East is Lieutenant Colonel Hal Kempfer. Hal is a retired U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, and he is currently the president of the strategic risk management firm KIP. Hal, good to have you back on the show with us. Hal, I want to start off by focusing on those comments from the European Union. It's telling Iran to stop its missile tests, and it's condemning Iran's assassinations of dissidents and assassination attempts, some successful, some not, on European soil. But at the same time, the EU is actively helping Iran avoid or bypass U.S. sanctions. How can you explain that inconsistency?
Michelle, there's something of a dynamic tension there. The money is the money. Iranian oil obviously is a very dominant factor. And it's a marketplace, and there are, even though it is a European Union, if you will, different members of that union still want to do business with Iran. It's very lucrative for them. Yeah. So there's that part of it, but the other part is the missiles, and that's a huge concern across the region, especially with the expanded range of some of the newer missiles.
And the president, Hal, says he wants to have U.S. troops in Iraq keep an eye on Iran. Does having troops in Iraq help the U.S. monitor Iran? Does it deter Iran?
Well, having a presence in Iraq does help us keep an eye on Iranian actions in that region. What we don't want to see is that part of Iraq become kind of a superhighway, if you will, of Iranian personnel and materials and weapons flowing into Syria. And so we'd like to kind of, obviously keep tabs on that. Probably this is something you really want to coordinate behind the scenes with the Iraqis before you make a public statement. And I think it really kind of caught the Iraqis off guard. And because of their situation, they probably felt the need that they had to say something fairly strong in rebuttal to those comments, because it is Iraqi sovereign territory.
So how much of the Iraqis' president's objection to this, saying that, that the U.S. needs his permission, if you will, to have U.S. troops in Iraq monitoring Iran, how much is that about playing to the factions within the Iraqi government that support Iran, as opposed to a genuine objection to this mission or side mission by U.S. troops, do you think?
Michelle, we're going to find out how much substance is behind it. We have a fairly extensive relationship with the Iraqis. I don't see them telling us we have to get our troops out of there anytime soon. And it does meet their strategic interest to have our presence there. And obviously everyone knows that if we're there, we're keeping tabs on everything going on in the region. It's not just the Iranians, but the Iranians are probably the biggest threat that we have to deal with in the region right now, along with making sure that ISIS doesn't rebound. But we're going to see. Some of that, as you point out, is for domestic political consumption. And he was basically forced to say something in rebuttal to the president's comments to basically, appease those within his government who would feel that we had kind of trampled on their sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, because it does come just very recently, the president of Iraq imploring U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to keep those around 5,000 U.S. military personnel in Iraq, helping to train and advise the Iraqi security forces there. Hal, the question is, though, does having U.S. troops in Iraq compensate for the U.S. withdrawal from Syria?
Well, with the withdrawal from Syria, we still need to have a presence over there. And actually, I would say with a lessened presence in Syria, having our troops in Iraq, particularly in northern Iraq, the base that the president was talking about is actually Al-Assad Air Base. I know that base quite well. I was there. And it's in a strategic location. It's very close to a lot of things of interest, shall we say. So it's important that we have that physical presence there for doing counterterrorism operations and anything else that needs to be done within that region. And the Iraqis know this, and they want to have our presence there. Even if we withdraw some of our troops from Iraq, there will still be a very large contractor presence kind of filling in the gaps, if you will, and making sure that those requirements are being met.
But Hal, is it enough to have U.S. Troops in Iraq, or to even bolster them? Is it enough to counterbalance the withdrawal from troops in Syria, both in terms of sending a message to Israel, both in terms of deterring Iran, and also in terms of keeping the Kurds safe, the U.S. allies that have helped the U.S. fight ISIS in Syria and that are under threat from Turkey? Does that objective, with all of those prongs, get met by troops in Iraq?
Well, troops in Iraq are kind of the linchpin to everything you just mentioned. The Kurds are obviously looking very closely to see, are we going to maintain our presence in that region? Are we going to be ready as a quick response force? Should we have to go, say, up into the Kurdish areas? There's also a possibility that we might have to do a quick response force to go up to the border. There's a lot of little towns right along the border of Iraq and Syria where when I was over there, we had to watch them very closely, and I imagine we're going to have to watch them very closely again as we pull out of Syria. But our presence there, the bases we have, particularly the al-Assad base, give us a very strong footprint in that area, an ability to project force. Obviously, we don't have the physical buffer force in Syria because we're pulling them back, but that actually puts more onus on being able to quickly react should the situation change. And if that does happen, we want to have the ability to put forces in very quickly, very effectively, which makes our physical presence in Iraq that much more important.
Hal, appreciate that breakdown and analysis. Hal Kempfer, thank you so much.